Greetings YouTube and welcome to another weapons build. So I've got this old bat kicking around. I have many old bats kicking around. I picked them up because I find them to be useful platforms for my projects. So I thought I would build a war club that has sets of teeth. Specifically 3 sets, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to be using 1 1/4 by 3/16 flat stock, and I'm going to put them like this. It's not going to be this long when I'm done. I have to figure out the length I want because each of the points on it is going to be 2.5 inches long. So, well, I'll square that off. But 2.5 inches long. So I need to figure out how long I want the first one because I want them to come down in descending order. So I want the largest here, medium, and small here. And I'm going to try to do this by drilling 3 sets of 2 holes of 1/4 holes, rather 1/4 holes. Sorry, those are 1/4 bolts. 1/4 holes, and then cut a slot between them to fit that. And hopefully I will be using my saber saw to do that, and have to do the minimum amount of sanding to get it to be the right size. And then I will also drill 3 holes through here, which will then go through the center. Not with this bit, that's for wood, but I will probably mark it with this so I have a divot, and then I will use my Blair Rotobroach kit to actually drill the hole properly through there. So the goal is to have this, figure out the distance. I need the holes to be apart so that the outside diameter is going to be 1 1/4. So I need to figure out where I want the holes to start. So I need to come in 1/8 of an inch. So I need a hole that is actually 1 inch, holes that are actually 1 inch apart, and then drill them with this, and that should give me a 1 1/4 inch hole when I'm done. So I need to set my holes up 2 inches apart. And I'm going to have to draw a line along here so that they are all the same in line, and I'll use pencil for that so I can get rid of it later. And then, or just ignore it because you probably won't even see it when I'm done. And then put the measurements in, use an awl to make some divots, and then go ahead and use this to work to drill the holes all the way through, because this is a nice bit that has a nice point on it, so it's really easy to go into a nicely formed hole with an awl. And that done, I will then have the holes that go perpendicular to that to take care of, and then working on the slot. So I'll do all the holes first because that gets that out of the way. I already have my channel, my drill channel in there for centering round stock for drilling holes. So that's convenient. That was just up there from the last project I worked on. So that's the first process. Drill 9 holes, all of them where I want them to be, and then work on the holes that are perpendicular, 6 in line, and then 3 perpendicular in the middle of those first 6. So that's going to be some measuring and some tinkering. We're going to need to figure that one out. Alrighty, so off to taking measurements and such. Woo! So all the holes are now complete. They are now where I want them to be. These are less critical because these are just for the bolts, so the bolts aren't perfectly aligned. These are these came out nice. The other side, they didn't come out quite as well, and I don't understand why. So I'm hoping I can massage this a little bit. For example, these 4 really came out nice and in line with each other. These 2 didn't. So I'm going to have to cut on this side here, really come on this side, and then cut less on that side, so that I kind of, because I want to move it that way slightly. So yeah, that's going to be a pain in the ass. It may take some tweaking. I don't know. We're going to see if I can make this work. And if I have to, I can always put a wedge in there to compensate for the screw up, and then drill the wedge out, and then put the whole thing together, and of course I can use wood glue to hold that all together if I have to. So if I need to, I can move things slightly with wooden wedges. But I'd like to not have to do that. But one of the problems is you're drilling things. This section of the barrel is pretty straight, kind of straight, but it does taper. And that makes it very difficult to get things to come out the way you want them to, unless you were holding the bat from the center here and the center there inside a machine that could perfectly be lined up with that centering, and that's a large mill, which I don't have, and that's a very complex setup to get these holes to come in. So there is some fudge factor when it comes into drilling a bat, holes in a bat. I'm doing the best I can here. So now that this is done, now I need to cut the slot. So I need to go find my saber saw, which I think is over there, and start hopefully getting this to be where I want. I'm going to need to grind off the edges on this so I can use this as my test piece. Make sure that's got no burrs on it, because I don't need to make my job any harder than it already is. Alright, so cutting slots. And here we have the slots done in the bat. Now I'm using my Makita saber saw here, and I discovered that this blade, this is the same size blade, is too big for a 1/4 inch hole. So I had to open up open up one of the holes on the slot. So the other ones remained a 1/4 inch, and I opened these up to 5/16, and that let me get the blade in. I could then begin to cut. And it took me a while. Like you notice, this one is the roughest. That's a little bit better, and that's the best. Guess which order I did these in, because this is a learning curve. I've never used a reciprocating saw like this, a saber saw, to cut a slot through a bat. This is a lot of wood. These blades are really not meant to take on that much mass at once, so it's very slow going. And I've actually knocked the blade out of the saw at least twice. But I figured out how to do it, and I figured out how to use the blade to not only get the main bulk of it out, but then to kind of fine tune it and kind of push the slots where I wanted to, because the holes weren't perfectly in line after I was done. There's just no way to do a perfectly aligned hole in a round object like this without like a mill. I wish I owned a mill. If I owned like a Bridgeport, that would be so awesome. It would make so many of my projects so much easier if I had that technology. But I don't, so I've got to work with what I've got. So all the way through here. So now this side is pretty much all in line. It's not perfect, but it's very close, and it's close enough for a post-apocalyptic themed weapon. So this is done. The holes here are done. So they're going to be what actually holds the blades in place once they have been placed in. This is the loosest one. These two are much better. These ones I can like put the blade in there and let it go, and it's not going to go anywhere. This is a little bit on the loose side, but again, it was the first one I did, and it is a learning curve involved. So what I'm going to do now is make the blades. That's going to be one of them, and I'm thinking of 975. 9-inch, 7-inch, and 5-inch. So that would be when it's centered. That'll be each one will come in an inch. So each one on a side will be an inch shorter than the one on the next to it. So you're going to have a nice little angle like that of the tips. Each tip is going to be 2.5 inches long. So that's going to come to a nice point. I'm not going for sharpness. I'm just going for penetration. So the points will not be sharpened, not to mention this steel I'm using is mild steel. I don't think even if you wanted to, you could harden this to any kind of reasonable hardness. Mostly I just want to get a point that is going to be penetrative into flesh, bone, things like that. Yes, I know it's a grotesque concept, but I face it, I'm making a weapon. That's what I'm doing here is my hobby. Oh, and by the way, I'm a big Makita fan. They make really nice tools. This is a nice saber saw. I don't remember how much I paid for this, but it wasn't an arm and a leg. It really wasn't. It definitely was a reasonable amount of money, and I picked up some general use blades, and I found that this particular blade seems to work the best. It's a wood blade. It's for clean wood, and this is clean wood, and the teeth go point up as opposed to this one, which they point down. I found this one gave me the most control working with this. I discovered that the hard way. This one was not. I used the wrong kind of blade in it. If I'd used that correct blade the first time, this slot would look much more like these two slots. That I then took this old piece of, well, not piece, this old broken sanding belt from my 1-inch belt sander, which I broke and smacked myself in the face with. Then I used that, get in the slots, and just kind of polish them up, take some of the bigger burrs out. So now it's going to be make the blades, confirm I want 9, 7, and 5, and if that works out, actually it can't be 9, 7, and 5. Shoot, it's going to have to be 11, 9, and 7. Yeah, 11, 9, and 7. Sorry, this is a work in progress. So 11, 9, and 7, and that will give me the points I need. So now it's going to be a bunch of cutting, and a bunch of shaping, and a bunch of sharpening. And once that's done, I'm going to put the blades in here and then drill right through. I am not going to drill the holes separately because I don't think there's any way I could measure it and get them to be centered. They would not be lined up where I want them to be. So rather than fight with that, I'm going to just come straight through like this and hope I can hold the blade, the pressure of the drill bit against the blade to keep it from moving up and down while I'm doing this. I'm hoping. We're going to see how that works out, because it's going to have to be drilled in this position, though I'll be much closer to the vise so I won't get any chatter. So yeah, that's the next step. Let's go for it! So here we have the laid out blades. Now I decided to go with 9, 8, 7 because I felt that that was the best balance, because the barrel of the bat at its widest is 2 inches, and it's going to be tapering. So this one is just going to have a little bit of steel showing on either side of the wood before the points begin. And this will have a little bit more because it's going to be up higher, and it's an inch longer. And then this has the most. And I think that's the best balance for the diameter of the bat and the blade. So this is, to me, this is a very much of an aesthetic here. I'm looking for what I think is an aesthetically pleasing balance. I've got the points all laid out, so now I need to clamp it down and then start cutting the points off, or kind of cutting the points. And once I've got the points all cut, I will then begin the final shaping and putting just a slight edge on it, just so it comes to a nice point for impact. And then I'm going to need to go upstairs and see if I've got any rubbing alcohol to get all the ink off of these things. I went to the grocery store today to pick up some other things, and I wanted to buy some rubbing alcohol, but apparently everyone in the world has bought it because of the pandemic. And I just want some rubbing alcohol because it's the best method of getting Sharpie off of steel. That's the only thing I want, is I want a little rubbing alcohol so I can clean off my projects. But apparently I can't have that. So yeah. So now it's going to be cutting a bunch of points. So time to put my safety glasses on and my earplug and my ear protection and do a whole lot of cutting. And here we have all 3 points. They are cut, ground, and they're sharpened, and I've cleaned all the Sharpie off it, so they look good. And these are my brand new white gloves, which are no longer white, but my hands are safe, so I'm quite happy. I picked those up at Lowe's. They're called Blue Hawk brand, I believe. I've done a review about these on my channel already. You've probably seen it if you wanted to. So now it's going to be putting the biggest one here and drilling a hole through it, and then tighten it down, move it down, and keep doing the same thing. I'm going to have to be very careful about centering as best I can, because once I get it drilled, it is not moving again. I'm thinking what I'll do is I will probably put a clamp on the top to hold the blade where I want it, and maybe one on the bottom. I'm not sure. There's not a lot of space in here. I want to try to keep it centered. So I want to get the measurement where I want it, clamp it down, and then drill the hole. I don't want to get any movement. So I think clamping the top of the blade like this, maybe the bottom of the blade, and keeping it centered on that, then drill the hole is probably going to be the safest and the most assured way of getting it as close to centered as possible. So that's the next stage. And here we have the finished war club. I gotta tell you, I am really pleased with this project. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I had to recut the number 8 blade because when I cut one of the tips, I was on the wrong side of the line, and so I always try to cut on the plus side so that I have something to play with, but I cut on the negative side, so I end up screwing it up. So I had to recut the number 8, the 8-inch one, but other than that, the whole process of cutting this went pretty well. Though I did shower my lower legs. I'm wearing shorts at the moment, which is not the smartest thing, but I showered my legs in sparks. I thought for a second there I thought I set my socks on fire. But they're wool, and wool is remarkably fire retardant. So I am really, really happy with this. The proportions are perfect. Everything just fell into place on this one, man. Let me switch this around so you can see the other side. So I just cut the bolts off because they were too long. But because these are carriage bolts, there is a little square section under this, so that helps really lock it in place. So it pulls it in, and it makes it tightening it against wood really easy because the square section sinks into the wood and it lets you really grip, and you can really turn that nut nice and tight. I did use a washer under each nut as well, just so that the nut would have something to slide on, and it makes it tightening a little bit easier. And that's the only reason I use them, really. But yeah, and I also put a hook here for hanging, because there is no real safe way to store this thing other than hanging it vertically. I'm slowly accumulating a whole hell of a lot of things that have to be hung vertically because they are very, very dangerous. This thing is beautiful. I am very happy. I apologize for all the superlatives. So now outside for some stills for Instagram and for DeviantArt of this and my other project, which I actually also completed today, which you've probably already see it by now, which is the flail with the cement striking head. So yeah, good day. 2 projects completed. I started both of them last week and was able to get both of them done this week. So totally, probably about I don't know, almost 3 hours sunk into this thing, I think, total, from beginning to end. Yeah, it's about 3 hours on this project. So I'm really happy with this. So now, time for pictures, and then to go take a shower, because I am grimy as all get out. Thank you for being here. I hope you'll be here for next video.